Welcome to the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. I am your host, Smitty. Do not have Donnie with me this week, so it's just going to be me. Unfortunately for you guys, we did not get Donnie's genius on the show this week. But, yep, Around the 412, it's part of the Pod Hub Network. You can head on over to podhubnetwork.com, check us out, check out all the other shows. You can also check out the social media page at Pod Hub Network on Twitter. Go like the page on Facebook. Like I said, it's us. It's a ton of other great shows, so go check them all out. Around the 412 is sponsored by Keats Barbershop. Keats Barbershop is an old-fashioned barbershop located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Open 10 to 7 Tuesday through Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturday. Every Tuesday, Christian Circle, who's the owner and operator there, does $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. So Tuesday is the day to go. But he's also got Keats Christmas Drive going on right now until December 20th. What he's doing is he's collecting toys, monetary donations, cards, clothes, whatever it might be, for the Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh. And when you donate, you get $5 off your next hair service, whether it be that day or in the future. So really cool stuff going on. And to keep up with the Christmas spirit, we also got Rocking Around the 412 Year 2 going on, of course. I talk about it all the time, but it's the most important thing to us. It's a mission that we've done last year and now this year, Year 2. The pin tweet on our Twitter will take you to the GoFundMe and give you all the information for what we're doing. To give you a little bit of background, we are donating all proceeds that are raised to families in need at Christmas time, to give the kids of those families the Christmas that we feel like they deserve. So we're running that to about 2 weeks before Christmas, so just a couple weeks to go before we can go out and get all the stuff for these kids and give them the Christmas they deserve. So if you want to get involved, like I said, the pin tweet is on our Twitter. Go check that out. Or you can just reach out to me at Z23Smitty or Donnie at Donnie Drew, and he'll give you all the information and tell you where to go to get involved. So, but without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So like I said, Donnie's not here with us this week, so it's just gonna be me giving you guys what I feel like is gonna happen here in week 13. It's the last week before playoffs in most leagues. Hopefully, you're not playing in week 17. So 14, 15, 16 standardly the playoff weeks. So you got to get a win this week heading into the playoffs. So let's start out with quarterbacks. Top 5 quarterback plays this week for me. Lamar Jackson's got to be number one pretty much every single week. He has a tough matchup this week with San Fran, which made me, in a way, almost want to put my number 2 guy ahead of him. But Lamar Jackson's just been a guy that's pretty much matchup proof with what he brings on the ground as well as through the air. You can count on him giving you that high floor that he does of 20-plus fantasy points. So, you can lock him into a top 5 spot pretty much every week. And for me, he's going to be QB1 until he really has, strings together some bad weeks. And at this point in the season, I just don't see it happening. So Lamar Jackson's my quarterback 1. Fantastic matchup here for my quarterback 2, Pat Mahomes, going against the Oakland Raiders, who gave up a ton of points to quarterbacks. It's Pat Mahomes. He's looked okay since coming back from the knee issue, the dislocated kneecap. But, I really like the matchup. We'll see what's going on with Tyreek Hill. That would obviously, even upgrade him further. And, speaking of Tyreek Hill, I do have him as a top 5 receiver play this week, foreshadowing a little bit there. But I do like Pat Mahomes a lot. I debated him being number 1 because of the great matchup with Oakland. But as I mentioned, Lamar Jackson just has too high of a floor for me to put anybody over him right now. On Thanksgiving Day, Drew Brees against Atlanta, playing in a dome. That's a fantastic matchup. The Saints offense pretty much fully healthy at this point. Michael Thomas, obviously one of the best weapons in the game right now, if not the best weapon in the game right now. Going against the Atlanta defense, it's not very good, quite frankly. And New Orleans typically has their number. They're always able to put up points against them. And playing in a dome, you got to love the matchup there for Drew Brees. So he's my quarterback 3. My quarterback 4, coming off of an abysmal week, one of the duds of the week, really, honestly, Aaron Rodgers. But going against the New York Giants this week, he has a chance to really right the ship. Fantastic matchup against the Giants. Devontae Adams continuing to just heal that toe and come back to full strength. You really just wonder what the heck's going on with Aaron Rodgers. He has like 1 or 2 massive weeks this year, but that's pretty much it. Is it finally time to have a conversation about Aaron Rodgers not being one of the elite in the game? That's for a different day, I think. But talking for right now, I think that Aaron Rodgers does have a bounce back week here, and he's a top 5 play this week, mainly because of the matchup. At this point, I'm kind of in that boat where I don't see Aaron Rodgers as a week to week elite quarterback. Like I hate to keep going back to Lamar Jackson, but I just don't think that Aaron Rodgers brings that same high floor that we used to see in past years. And then my number 5, which might surprise somebody, I got Kyler Murray here against the Rams. Reason being, we literally just last night saw the Rams defense give up the points that they did to Lamar Jackson, 40 plus points. And Kyler Murray, similar style to Lamar Jackson. I think that his game is very similar, with what he brings on the ground as well. And we could be looking at a huge day for Kyler Murray and the Arizona offense here to put up points. I don't know if I would pick them to beat the Rams, but I'm picking their offense to have a pretty nice day, and that's going to include, obviously, the quarterback, Kyler Murray, having a monster day against them. So that wraps up my top 5 quarterbacks, going Lamar Jackson against San Fran, Mahomes against Oakland, Brees against Atlanta, Rodgers against the Giants, and Kyler Murray against the LA Rams. Moving on to running backs. Running back 1 every single week for me is going to be Christian McCaffrey. There's nobody with a higher floor at the running back position. Week in and week out, you can count on 20 plus points from him. And this week, a fantastic matchup against Washington. So that's just whipped cream on top. So I love the matchup. You gotta love the player as well. Christian McCaffrey going against the Redskins here, who are abysmal against running backs. I mean, I could have just stopped at abysmal. They're abysmal. So. I really have no other justification for it. I don't think that there needs to be one. It's Christian McCaffrey. He's going against the Redskins. He's running back 1. My number 2 running back this week is going to be Dalvin Cook going against Seattle. Not a premier matchup by any means here. Seattle is not bad by any means as far as giving up points to the running back position. But if you look at the running back position, it's been so hit or miss other than Christian McCaffrey with who finishes out in that top 5. Dalvin Cook has been very good this year, and he's typically in the top 5 as well. So I think he's a pretty safe bet to finish inside there again, even going against the Seattle team that doesn't give up a ton of points to the running back position. The Vikings offense is starting to put it all together. Kirk Cousins has been very good since week 3. Just in general, that offense has really started to click. So I like Dalvin Cook here as my running back 2. Running back 3, as a fantasy owner of this guy, I don't have the utmost trust in him. He's only averaging 2 yards per carry over the last 3 games. But Saquon Barkley going against Green Bay really has a chance here to right the ship. They give up the 4th most points to running backs. It's going to be a very rainy day from what it looks like looking at it right now, at least. And Saquon Barkley is going to have ample opportunity to have a field day against the Packers, who are much better against the pass than the run. My running back 4 is going to be Nick Chubb going against the Steelers, which obviously, being a Steeler fan, I hate. But it's going to be very bad conditions, it looks like, for that game as well. And they should lean heavily on their run between him and Kareem Hunt. But Nick Chubb is the number 1 back there. And I think that he has a very nice day. It doesn't mean, that the Browns are going to win. But I think that a lot of our offense is going to come on the ground due to the weather conditions that we're going to see on Sunday in Pittsburgh. And my running back number 5, this is the first time I've had him as a top 5 play, I think, this year. Derrick Henry going against Indianapolis, coming off a monster game against a team that he always owns, the Jacksonville Jaguars. But he gets Indy here, which is not, that's pretty much middle of the pack defense to go against for running backs from a fantasy perspective. But just being that he's coming off a monster day, that offense, once again, really starting to put together under Ryan Tannehill, who I feel like I can't stop mentioning all of a sudden on the show. I really like the matchup here, even though it doesn't look great on paper. I feel like Tennessee's offense is really starting to put it all together, and that goes through Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill is definitely making it, much easier for him because he is giving them a decent passing option. But yeah, Derrick Henry has been very good as of recent, and I think that he's a top 5 play this week, just based off of the matchups I was looking at and seeing that there weren't a ton of premier matchups for top guys. So he rounds out my top 5. So McCaffrey against the Redskins, Dalvin Cook against Seattle, Saquon against Green Bay, Nick Chubb against the Steelers, and Hunter Henry against Indianapolis. I'm sorry, I said Hunter Henry. Derrick Henry. Man, I'm already looking at tight ends. We got 2 Henrys in top 5s this week. So top 5 receivers now. Michael Thomas on Thanksgiving Day going against Atlanta in the Dome. I mentioned Drew Brees and that offense really putting it all together. Michael Thomas is wide receiver 1 pretty much week in and week out for me. He's having a historic season. I feel like people aren't really talking about it enough because Lamar Jackson's kind of been all the rage this year. But Michael Thomas having a fantastic year. He's going to set records, and he's going to continue to put up huge numbers this week against Atlanta with Drew Brees inside that dome. My wide receiver 2, getting back to Aaron Rodgers, kind of righting the ship this week. Devontae Adams going against the Giants. The Giants have one of the worst, I could probably stop there, teams in football, defenses in football, whatever you want to say about the Giants. It's probably true as long as it's a negative thing. They're atrocious, and Devontae Adams should have a field day. That toe has looked fine since coming back. It's only going to continue to get healthier, in my opinion. And, I think that he's wide receiver 2 this week. Hopefully he can finally score a touchdown. Tyreek Hill going against Oakland is assuming that he's good to go. I'm not too sure what's going on there health-wise at the moment, but assuming he's good to go going against Oakland, it's a fantastic matchup. Patrick Mahomes and him have one of the best connections in football. And, it's a mouth-watering matchup. I can't say more than that, to be honest with you. It's Tyreek Hill. He's going to rip off one huge play, burn the defense at least one time. So, he's my wide receiver 3 this week. Wide receiver 4, really banking on a huge rebound here for the offense in general, because Cooper Kupp's been good, but the way that Jared Goff has played has really limited his production here in the last few weeks. So Cooper Kupp going against Arizona is my wide receiver 4. Arizona, another mouth-watering matchup for a receiver, but it really depends here on what you get from the quarterback, because Jared Goff has been absolutely atrocious the last few weeks. Now he has had some tough matchups, but with what the Rams paid him, you would expect him to be able to win you those games and to thrive against those matchups. So right now, Jared Goff's not doing either of those things. So in my wide receiver 5 coming off another big week, it's, you can pretty much flip a coin and say what Tampa Bay receiver you want to throw in here. I'm going to go Chris Godwin just because of what he did last week. Go against Jacksonville here. Jacksonville, obviously they traded Jalen Ramsey. Everybody knows that. They still have A.J. Boye there, but, he's not going to stay on one receiver, I don't think. He's going to have to move around. They got him and Mike Evans there, so where's the attention going to go? And I just think with what Chris Godwin did last week, that he's due for another big game here. And I like him as my wide receiver 5. He's pretty much always been in the top 5. So Michael Thomas against Atlanta, Devontae Adams against the Giants, Tyreek Hill against Oakland, Cooper Kupp against the Arizona Cardinals, and Chris Godwin going against the Jags. That's my top 5 at the receiver position. Now I can talk about Hunter Henry. My top 5 tight ends. I'm going to go Travis Kelce, number 1 against Oakland. So, this KC-Oakland matchup, it's very good for KC. KC's offense. Oakland's going to be tested to try to keep pace with their offense. I don't see it happening. But Zach Ertz going against Miami is going to be number 2 at the tight end position for me. Obviously, everybody knows how bad the Dolphins are. Zach Ertz has really started to put it together the last couple weeks. We'll see what happens with Carson Wentz. We know there is some injury concern there. But either way, I think that Zach Ertz is a good play at the tight end position. I might lower him a little bit depending on what Wentz's status were to be. But I still like him because whoever's out there, they're going to be looking for the tight ends, that security blanket. So tight end number 3, George Kittle going against Baltimore, even playing with that broken bone in his ankle, was stellar on Sunday night. Really didn't look like he was losing a step. Baltimore's defense, obviously not a fantastic matchup, but it's George Kittle. So long as he's on the field, he's going to be a top 3 tight end play. So, tight end 4, Darren Waller going against KC. As I mentioned, Oakland's got to try to keep pace with KC a little bit. No Hunter Renfrow for the Raiders, put on season-ending IR. So we will see, where those targets maybe go. Not that Hunter Renfrow was a primary option. Waller had been, the primary option along with Tyrell Williams. But, a loss at anywhere, means more opportunity for the guys that are out there. And I think that Darren Waller could even be a bigger beneficiary now. He's already, the key guy in the red zone for Derek Carr. Oakland coming off an abysmal loss to the Jets, and we'll see what their offense looks like against KC. And finally, Hunter Henry going against Denver, as I already mentioned. I wanted to say Hunter Henry so bad as a running back, but no, he's a tight end, and I got him as my tight end 5. Going against Denver, a middle-of-the-pack matchup in terms of the points that Denver allows to the tight end position. But I love Hunter Henry. I think that he's a top 5 option pretty much week in and week out, regardless of the matchup, as long as he gets the QB play. Phillip Rivers has not been very good this year. I almost said San Diego. The LA Chargers could very well look to move on from him this offseason. But for the time being, Hunter Henry's still a premier option at that tight end position, and a guy that Phillip Rivers is still looking to. Whether or not he can give the ball or if the other team's going to be taking it back the other way, I don't know. But Hunter Henry is going to get ample opportunity to get the ball, especially when they get down to that red zone. So I like Hunter Henry this week as a top 5 play to round out the tight ends. Kelsey against Oakland, Zach Ertz against Miami, George Kittle against the Baltimore Ravens, Darren Waller against the Chiefs, and Hunter Henry going against the Broncos. That's your top 5 tight ends. And moving on to the waiver wire ads, which, obviously you gotta listen to this tonight to be able to place those waiver wire ads to get them in on Wednesday. I'm circling back to my guy from last week, honestly, because he's still owned in just 26% of the leagues. At the quarterback position, Ryan Tannehill, 4 touchdowns last week. He plays Indianapolis this week. Tennessee's offense is really getting it going. A combination of Ryan Tannehill coming in for Marcus Mariota and them finding the running game and Derrick Henry. A.J. Brown has been very good. Really, Corey Davis is kind of the guy that's been silent, and that's kind of surprising with the fact that Tennessee's offense has turned it on. You would think that he'd be a huge beneficiary there. But nonetheless, Ryan Tannehill has been very good for that Tennessee offense. They're in a playoff mix now. They very well, depending on how things shake out with the Steelers and Browns battling it out, the way Oakland looked against the Jets, Tennessee could be right there in the thick of things. So he's a good ad, I think, and going against Indianapolis this week if you're looking for a quarterback. If you don't have one of those stud guys that you can roll out every week and you're kind of, streaming one every week, Ryan Tannehill is a very good option. At running back, Benny Snell's my guy here, owning just 6% of the leagues going against Cleveland this week. But, James Conner's health, not just in question for this week, but really the extended future. I mean, this is a long-term thing now with James Conner. He's been hurt for a good portion of his Steelers career. And Jalen Samuels was supposed to be the guy, but Benny Snell ended up drawing the start, and he ran for almost 100 yards this past Sunday against the Bengals. Excuse me. And I expect them, he's the ground and pound running back. Like Jalen Samuels might, catch some balls out of the backfield, but the vision isn't there with him. He's not a traditional between the tackles running back, and Benny Snell is going to be the guy that they lean on when they actually want to run the ball and get physical, and he showed he can do it. So owning just 6% of the leagues, he goes against Cleveland this week, and as I mentioned, with the way the forecast is looking, it could be a very good game to have that type of running back. They're going to be running the ball because they're not going to be able to throw the ball with the weather conditions, or really, who knows, with the quarterback situation, they're going to be turning to Devlin Hodges on Sunday to make his just second career start. So we'll see what happens there, but I really like Benny Snell as an ad for, this week, but also with the way James Conner's health has been up in the air, he could be a very nice ad for the playoff run for you too. A wide receiver, with the way that the Jets offense has been going, I like Robbie Anderson here. I've had Jamison Crowder on here a couple times this year. The Jets offense is really starting to turn it on. Sam Darnold is finding his game, and they have a very favorable matchup down the stretch. Robbie Anderson goes against Cincinnati this week and is owning just 53% of the leagues. Cincinnati actually not a terribly bad matchup. It's a bad matchup in terms of they don't give up a ton of points to receivers somehow. I'm not sure why that's the case. I guess teams are getting up too big on them and they're kind of stop throwing the ball. But I still like the matchup. I mean, on paper, they're a very beatable defense, as we saw, as we continue to see every week. So Robbie Anderson was the big play guy for the Jets last year with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has kind of looked more towards Jamison Crowder this year. He's a security blanket. He's the best route runner on the Jets. But Robbie Anderson's the big play guy there, and I think that, against Cincinnati, you can pretty much bank on him getting loose at least one time for a big play. And then at tight end, I think Donnie had him as in his top waiver wire ads for last week. But Dallas Goedert going against Miami this week, owning just 53% of the Yahoo leagues. The other tight end there in Philly, but he's been, putting up pretty much tight end one numbers, even along with Zach Ertz. So, he's looked at in the red zone. They keep 2 tight ends on the field a ton, especially with the limited options they've had at receiver this year. They haven't had a receiver catch a touchdown since week 6, so it's pretty much the tight end show in Philly for both of them, and I think they both continue to stand a chance to do well week in and week out. And Dallas Goedert, owning just 53% of leagues going against Miami this week, I think is a good ad, and you can plug him in there as a tight end if you don't have one of those few stud guys that you have at the tight end position, because there's not many of them. So that's my waiver wire ads for the week. Looking back at last week, obviously, you either got burned by guys that you didn't expect to, or you had to throw a dart and that guy somehow ended up giving you 20-plus points, whatever it might be. You got your studs and duds every single week. So let's start out with the studs of the week. Quarterback Sam Darnold going for 31.2 points. Nobody really saw that coming. Like I said, he's starting to play a lot better, though. The Jets' offense is starting to play a lot better. And then putting up 34 points on Oakland, who at the time sat in a wild card spot, was very impressive. We'll see if the Jets continue to do that. They have a meeting with Cincinnati, the winless Bengals, this week. So we'll see if, maybe Sam Darnold pops back up in the top 5 scores at the position again next week. At the running back position, Derrick Henry, a guy that I mentioned already, the way that he eats against Jacksonville is just second to none. He loves playing against the Jaguars. But he had 28.5 points this past Sunday. And I just, looked at the wide receiver position too. I went with A.J. Brown. So really the Tennessee offense Sunday, 45 points against the Jaguars. They just, as a unit, really ate. So at the tight end position, Caden Smith had 5 catches and a touchdown in place of Evan Ingram, the Giants tight end. 5 catches, probably not what you're expecting. So if you're in a PPR league, that really helps. He did only have 17 yards, but the touchdown, obviously, really helps the production at the tight end position, makes him a top 5 tight end play, because that's how, limited the production is at that position. So that's my stud of the week at that position. Duds of the week, Matt Ryan was considered to be a top 3 play at the position. He had like 3 fantasy points, I think. It's almost stupid, depending on how your league scores. But anyway, just the fact that he was considered a top 3 play and didn't even finish in the top 15 at the position is obviously a huge disappointment, so he shows up in the duds. Jalen Samuels, for the simple reason that he was supposed to be the starter, essentially. When James Conner goes down, you just think Jalen Samuels is the next guy in line, but that was not that case. We saw Benny Snell come in and run for almost 100 yards, had over 100 total yards, and really dominate the touches out of the backfield. So very disappointing, because a lot of people probably had Jalen Samuels in their lineup, especially if you're in a PPR league. You were expecting RB2 production just based off volume. So at the wide receiver position, I'm going to say Cortland Sutton here, only because he had just 1 catch on 8 targets. The wide receiver 1, essentially, in Denver, really did nothing. And it was, when you're targeted 8 times, it could be not even his fault. But to just come down with 1 reception on 8 targets, that's kind of a Dante Moncrief looking stat line. So, not sure, how many drops were in there, if any, but yeah. And then at the tight end position, this is tough because there weren't a ton of, stud guys that you expect that were underperforming this week. So I went with Mark Andrews, just because of the way that the Ravens offense as a whole played, putting up 40-plus points against the Rams, but he himself only had 6.5 points. I just, it's a guy that you pretty much have plugged into the top 5 tight ends for week in and week out to just get 6.5 points when his team's put up 45. I would say that you'd be relatively disappointed as a Mark Andrews owner to see that was the case. So, and then finally, to wrap up my must-starts of the week, at the quarterback position, I'm going with Kyler Murray against the Rams. That's my guy this week, just because of how bad the Rams' defense has been, specifically against Lamar Jackson, who fits a lot of the same mold as Kyler Murray. They're cut from a very similar cloth. I'm not going to say that they're the same player, but Kyler Murray does a lot of the things that Lamar Jackson does, and does them well. He can throw the ball, he can run the ball. He's a dual threat guy, and I think that he's in for a very good game here against the Rams defense, who, man, I just can't figure out. They gave up 2 first-round picks. They did Jalen Ramsey to not have him shadow a team's best weapon. So, at running back, Christian McCaffrey, which is, probably the easiest thing that somebody could say, going against the Redskins, though, this week makes it that much more mouth-watering of a matchup. Christian McCaffrey, you could argue, regardless of who he's playing, is going to be the top scorer at his position. But I think that he's a must-start, specifically this week, because of the matchup. I mean, you'd be a must-start regardless of who you're playing. But when you look at the other matchups at the running back position, none of them are, mouth-watering among top guys. And that's why you have a guy like Le'Veon Bell, even though he's not been a fantastic scorer going against the Bengals, as a potential top 5 guy. At wide receiver, to stay away from picking the sure bet, the Michael Thomas. I want Devontae Adams, hopefully, the Packers offense rebounding here against the Giants. I'm banking on that happening. So, and then at tight end, I'm going with Hunter Henry, who's been my guy for most of the year. When healthy, I think he's a top 5 tight end in this league. He goes against Denver here, which is not a phenomenal matchup. And, Phillip Rivers is his quarterback, he's not a phenomenal quarterback. So, call me crazy for having Hunter Henry here. But that's how big I am on Hunter Henry. I just think that he can make things happen. Even when the things around him are bad, he's going to be great. And I think that he's still the primary guy for them in the red zone, even over Keenan Allen. And I think that you can, if they get into the red zone, he's the top option. I think he's going to score a touchdown as long as that team gets into the red zone. That's how confident I am in Hunter Henry. But yeah. And then I wanted to do, it's unfortunate that Donnie's not here, but obviously Thanksgiving's in a couple days, and share something that we're thankful for fantasy-wise. And I'd just like to say that I'm thankful for the New England Patriots defense. I typically am a guy that streams my defense week in and week out, but they've been too consistent. They've been so good to me. They're pretty much like a top 20 fantasy player overall in their defense. So I'm very thankful to the New England Patriots defense. I'm also thankful for anybody that listens to the show. Thank you very much. I know that it's a lot shorter this week because it's literally just me rambling on talking. So I hope you guys don't mind just me going on for like 25 minutes because that's how long this has been. But to pretty much wrap things up, once again, this has been Around the 4-1-2 Fantasy Football Show. As part of the PodHub Network, you can head on over to podhubnetwork.com and check us out, along with all the other podcasts. You can check us out on social media at the PodHub Network. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. You can follow Around the 412 on Instagram. We also have a Facebook. We also have an Instagram. Of course, I mean, social media in today's age, why wouldn't we have it? Around the 412 is brought to you by Keeks Barbershop. Keeks Barbershop is an old-fashioned barbershop located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. Every Tuesday, they do $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. The hours there are 10 to 7, Tuesday through Friday, and Saturday 9 to 4. Right now, he's got Keeks Christmas Drive going on. Take a monetary donation, toys, clothes, cards, whatever it might be, that benefits the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, and you receive $5 off your next haircut. And to keep up with the Christmas giving spirit, we got Around the 412 Year 2 going on. We've already hit our initial goal, but we're just going to keep on trucking and see how much we can raise to benefit families at Christmas time and kids that otherwise would not have the Christmas that we feel like they deserve. So head on over to our Twitter, as I mentioned, Around the 412. Check out our pinned tweet there. It'll take you right to the GoFundMe. You can see all the information there. This has been Around the 412. This has been Smitty. Hopefully Donnie's back with me next time to guide you to that first playoff W. But until then, we'll see you.